I guess I have the lighting really dark because we're talking about Diminished today, right? So, welcome back to the channel. I'm really excited for this video. All we're going to talk about is everything diminished that I can fit in however long this video is going to be, roughly about a half hour, so we'll see what the time frame looks like. But we'll first talk about why diminished is really important, why you absolutely need to be using diminished, whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or you're an advanced player. You need to be incorporating diminished into everything from your shredding to your improvising to your songwriting, etc. It's all going to help you out tremendously to sound much more professional on the fretboard. So let's go over why we need to go through diminished. So like I said, diminished is something that you can do whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced player. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second and why that is. But diminished is easy no matter what skill level you're at because the shapes are extremely easy and the music theory is actually relatively easy to understand. Next thing, look at most hard rock and metal guitar players, especially nowadays, or even back then. Most of them use diminished in a lot of their shredding and a lot of their playing. Why do they use it? Because of my next point. It creates a lot of tension, creates a lot of dark tones, and allows you to release that tension, creating a really nice all-around good melody. Because whenever we talk about what music is and what melodies are, it is like having a conversation and utilizing a conversation in the sense that there's some tension and then the tension gets resolved, right? That's essentially what music is. We're having a conversation. So the diminished is going to allow you to have a really good conversation, aka making really awesome runs and melodies. The next reason is because it's going to get you out of the pentatonic box or any box that you feel like you're in, because the diminished arpeggio is a symmetrical chord or a symmetrical arpeggio. I'll show you what that means in a second. But basically, it's going to get you from one spot on the fretboard all the way up as high as you want to go. So that's one of the coolest things. It's one of the reasons why whenever I talk to beginners and intermediates and I say, why do you feel like you're stuck in a box? They're like, oh, well, I keep doing my pentatonic stuff. I'm like, aside from learning other scale shapes, have you ever tried arpeggios, like the diminished arpeggio? And they're like, no. And then I show it to them, and they're like, oh my God, this is like the easiest thing I've ever learned. So that's why I'm showing it to you today, so let's go through it. So now we're gonna go into everything music theory about the diminished arpeggio. Now, just a quick note here, we will not be talking about the half diminished or the minor 7 flat 5, mostly because in this video I want to streamline you being able to shred and play with diminished as fast as possible. And the half diminished, it's a little bit different, okay? It's going to have just one slightly different note. Actually, the 7th is raised by a half step, but don't worry about that. The regular diminished and the diminished 7 arpeggio is going to be what we're going to focus on. It's going to be very, very easy. So let's talk about what a diminished triad is first. So to understand what a diminished triad actually is, we first need to talk about what is a triad, okay? So going back to baby steps with music theory, we've got 12 keys, right? And each of those keys can be made into major or minor scales using the whole step, half step method, right? Well, each of those 7 notes in each of those scales can be made into triads using a root, third, fifth system. Okay, there are major triads, there are minor triads, there are augmented and diminished triads. So when we talk about the diminished triad, there are certain scale degrees that get the diminished triad just by the mathematics of it. So let's talk about the mathematics really quick. This is the hard way of figuring out diminished. If we first start by taking a look at a major arpeggio like C, E, G, if we take that root, third, fifth, which is major, okay, we notice that C to E is a major third apart, which means that is basically 4 frets away. But then if you look at the notes E to G, it's actually 3 frets away or a minor third away. So think of it like a fraction. C to E is the major third, then E to G is the minor third, and then you have your full major chord. A minor triad is the exact opposite of that, where we have the minor third on top, or I'm sorry, on the bottom, and then the major third on the top. Okay, so C to E flat is 3 frets, E flat to G is 4 frets away. Pretty easy, right? So when we then go into the diminished triad, all we need to do is look at the minor triad and flatten the 5th scale degree. So it basically creates a minor third with another minor third. So both of them are 3 frets apart, C to E flat and then E flat to G flat. Okay, so that's essentially what the diminished triad is and how it works mathematically. When we add the 7th on top of it, all you're going to do is go up another minor third. So if we were taking this example of C diminished, all we'd have to do is do C, E flat, G flat, and then you're going to go up another third, which is A natural. Okay? So now back to the conversation that I was talking about earlier about all these keys and all these scales and then triads and stuff. If we can understand the basics of the circle of fifths, we can understand where we need to use this diminished triad. Okay, so let's start by thinking about it like this. We have 7 notes in a major scale, right? So take something like C major. We have C to E, F, G, A, and then B, right? Pretty easy. Okay, that's pretty understandable. If you lay out those diatonically, you'll find that the 1 chord, or C, is major. The 4 chord, F, is also major, and the 5 chord, G, is also major. The middle ones, like the 2, 3, and 6, are minor, and the 7 is your diminished. Okay? Why is your 7 diminished? Well, mathematically, when you use that root third fifth method by counting up a third from your root and then a fifth from your root, if you start on the note B, the 7th scale degree, up a third from B is D in that scale, and then up a fifth from B is F. So B, D, F happens to lay out like this. A minor third, and then another minor third. Okay? And then, of course, if you add the 7th on it, you will have a G sharp or an A flat. Okay? But that's essentially how it is. So for every single scale or key that you are using in major, the 7 is your diminished arpeggio. Yes, you heard me correctly. Every single major key. So that means that if somebody said, hey, we're in the key of G major, all you need to do is go to the note F sharp 1 fret back and play a diminished chord or an arpeggio or whatever you're going to do, which we're going to go over all that stuff a little bit later on in the video, but I'm just trying to get you to understand. If you were in the key of A major on the 5th fret, the 7th note in the scale is your diminished chord, okay? You're going to use that tension, and then you're going to resolve that tension. Okay, that's how this stuff works. Okay, I have a video called Tension and Resolution for beginners. So if you're curious about more of like the ear training and how all that stuff works and how listeners react to the tension and release stuff, go ahead and click on that video. It's a very, very good video. But anyways, if we understand that, then let's go to our minor keys. Okay, specifically, let's go to our relative minor here. So we originally said that we were in the key of C major, right? So we were on the 8th fret. We already talked about that going back 3 frets equals relative minor, right? So if you play a minor scale on the 5th fret, okay, if we remember back to the major key, the 7th was diminished, which was the note B. So that means that the 2nd scale degree in A is the note B, and they are relative keys, so they are the same notes in a different order. That means that they're the same chords in a different order. So that means that in a minor key, yes, the 2 is your diminished. So that means that if you were in the key of A minor, your 2 is your diminished, and then resolve it. Okay, so let's take another example. If I said we were in the key of B minor on the 7th fret, go to the 2nd scale degree, and that is your diminished arpeggio. Okay, it's that simple. Okay, and this is universal throughout the fretboard. As long as you know where that 2nd scale degree is, you can use all of the shapes that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. Okay, and there's some actually advanced stuff in here that is going to blow your mind. That's going to totally rock your world here. So we'll go through that a little bit later. But that's how that works. So we only need to go through one more scale to really nail diminished. Okay, and then we'll get into the shapes. That is going to be harmonic minor. Okay, so let's talk about harmonic minor. The harmonic minor scale is the regular minor scale, but we're going to raise the 7th note up a half step. Okay, so when you play your minor scale, just raise up that 7th note up by a fret, and then you're good to go. So the thing that I always tell my students is this: when you change notes, you have to change the chords that have that note in there. So every single triad in A minor that had that G, the 7th scale degree, is now G sharp. What does that affect? Well, it affects the 3 chord, right? Because that is a C chord. So instead of C, E, G, it's C, E, G sharp. That's augmented. Don't worry about that. The 5th chord, so the 5th note in A minor is E. Right there, right? Usually it's E, G, B, a minor triad, okay? But we're raising the G to a G sharp. Okay, that's going to actually be a tension chord that we'll talk about in a different video, okay? But I'm just giving you that idea because if you go to the 7th scale degree, your notes are usually G, B, D. But when you raise it to a G sharp, yes, it creates diminished. And check this out. This is going to blow your mind. The 2 is still diminished in your minor key. Check this out. B, D, F, A flat. If I start on the note G sharp or A flat, B, D, F. It's the same notes in a different order or a different inversion. And that's what we're going to get to here in just a moment. Is diminished is symmetrical, meaning that if you start on the 2 in harmonic minor or the 7 in harmonic minor, it's going to amount to being the same notes, which leads me to how we're going to navigate through everything across the fretboard, okay? So this is going to be really, really fun. I love showing everybody this, so let's get into it. So now that we're talking about how we maneuver it across the fretboard, the first thing you need to understand is the 3 fret rule. So we already talked about how a diminished triad is just a stack of 2 minor thirds on top of each other. With the diminished 7, it's just a minor third. So that means hypothetically, not hypothetically, really, if you start on the right note, like let's say we're in the key of C major, and we start on the 7 like we talked about, all you have to do is go up 3 frets, and that creates the arpeggio. And it's going to keep cycling through the exact same notes in the arpeggio over and over again. It doesn't matter how far back you start, right? It's going to keep doing the exact same notes over and over again, which is very, very at least for me, it was very groundbreaking. Okay, so I hope that this helps because we're going to go into some of the shapes that'll make it a lot easier. Obviously, yeah, you can just play it going on one string, but we're going to get you going across the fretboard here. So let's get into that a little bit. So for this example, we're going to be using the key of G minor. Okay, so on the circle of fifths, we're going to have 2 flats, a B flat and an E flat. Just kind of take note of that. And the relative major is B flat major. Doesn't necessarily matter what key I'm in, but for this sake, I'm just going to say we're in the key of G minor. Okay, so if our root is here and I play a minor scale, the 2nd scale degree is A. So we're going to play this shape on the note A. Okay, that's the shape. It's essentially the same shape of index pinky, just up a fret until you get to the B string, bump it up an extra fret. Descending, it's the same thing, just go back a fret, but B to G string, go back 2 frets, okay? And it's one of the easiest ones that you can play on. You know, if you're noodling a little bit, right? I'm just doing something like that to show you that using diminished is really, really cool and really, really easy, okay? Anytime you use it, by the way, get back to the tonic, for now at least. Resolve it back to the tonic wherever you are on the fretboard, okay? If you have to go back to the bottom, that's totally fine. But once you get better at the fretboard, you can resolve it to any tonic octave that you can find, right? So now that that's kind of understood, we're going to go into some chord shapes, okay? The chord shapes, I'm just going to put them on the screen because they're actually really, really easy, and you can use them in your chord progressions. Things like that. If you look into more jazz guitar, they have so many different shapes, and like I said, diminished is a symmetrical shape or chord or triad, whatever you want to call it. So that means that if you take one shape, you can go up 3 frets and it's the same chord. right? And just keep going up. Right? So it's a really cool thing that you can do, which leads to the next and possibly the most important thing that you're going to get out of here is sweep picking with diminish. Okay, so if you're not at sweep picking yet, you can just alternate pick this. But here's what you're going to do. Go to the second scale degree in G, which is the note A. Okay, think about the 4 notes in that chord for a second. We have A, we have a C, an E flat, and then a F sharp. Okay, technically speaking, this goes more into the advanced stuff that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Those notes, you can start on any of those 4 notes and use any of the shapes that we're talking about, and it's still going to amount to the same thing. Don't do it with the chords though, that might confuse you a little bit. I would say just stick to the arpeggios because they're single notes. It might be a little bit easier for you. But anyways, that means that with this sweep shape that I'm going to show you, which is all it is going to be, we're starting on the note A, which is the 14 of the G. Then we're going to do 13, and then 11, and then 14. Bump it up 3 frets, up another 3, maybe back, etc., etc., which is absolutely awesome. So in theory, if I was in the key of G minor or B flat major, let's say I'm in B flat major, which is the relative major, I'm supposed to start on the 7, which is A. I could also start on the note C, right, which is the next third in the diminished chord. So I could technically find a C. I could do that shape. I could start on C here and do the sweep. Okay, and that's going to apply to any of the other shapes that we do, so keep that in mind. But if you're getting confused, stick to what we talked about earlier and just start on the 2 or start on the 7. So a little bit more on the advanced side of things. Technically speaking, you can tap through diminish, and it's actually not that hard once you get the technique down. But all it is up 3 frets. Start on the note A, hammer onto C, then tap E flat. So it'd be 5, 8, and 11. You can do the EVH way, Randy Rhoads way. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to do it hammer-ons going up. Okay, so you're going to do this. Then you're just going to take the shape and bump it up a fret. So now we're on what? 6, 9, and 12. 7, 10, 13 on the D. And then we're going to keep going up a fret, B string, go up 2 frets. Okay, and here's the cool thing about the high E string to the G. If you're following with me with this, you can do that. You can descend going back with pull-offs. That's totally fine. You can also, check this out. If you do this shape that we landed on here with 11, 14, and 17, technically speaking, this, if you bump it all up to the G, it's the same chord. Just like that, which is really, really cool and unique about diminished. Okay, so it'll kind of make more sense when we do the string skipping and the stretching stuff that I'll show you actually right now. So whenever I tell people, like, whenever people ask me, I want to know how to string skip, I want to know how to do this and that, I always give them the same exercise. Just do diminish with the stretching. It's the same frets, just in a different spot, right? So if you're shredding through it, it works just like that. So it's, again, it's the same shape, just moving it around. Yes, you need to practice it. You need to practice your pick slanting with it, all that good stuff. You can even just legato it if you want to. It works universally throughout the fretboard, okay? And what you need to practice right now is you need to go through your keys, maybe take one key for the month, figure out where diminish is, and practice that a lot. When you're improvising, if you only do pentatonic, go to the 2. And there you go, you're good to go. So adapt this to your style and use it how you like. you can tonicize. This is wild. You can take a diminished arpeggio like A, C, E flat, and G flat, right? Technically speaking, I know we already said that this note A is the 2 of G and then the 7 of B flat. What if you wanted to see what it would sound like if the C was your 2 and then the C was your 2 in this scale? But it's the same, but the diminished chord is the same with both keys. If I was in the key of G minor and I did my diminished on A, C, E flat, G flat, but then I was in the key of B flat minor, C, E flat, and G flat, and A, it's the same chords. That's the thing about this, is a lot of keys have the same diminished arpeggio. There's only 12 notes, and when you do symmetrical arpeggio like that, things are gonna start being the same. So here's what you can do. With every 4 notes in diminished, you can utilize any of those as the 2 or the 7 of a major or minor key, and you can modulate. Let me give you an example. I'm going to use the note E flat, which is the 3rd note in G minor. I'm going to use that as if that was the 7. Okay? So if I was in G minor, I'm just doing something like that. Then I do my A diminished. Okay? Then I'm going to do Do you see how now we totally modulated into E major? That's the thing, is because diminished is symmetrical, you can utilize this by changing from one key to the next. Okay? It takes some practice, it takes some time, and even as you get really good, you can use the secondary diminished, right, in any key, right? In theory, if I was in G minor, or whatever I'm doing, and I wanted to get to, I don't know, A minor, I could just do like A diminished starting on A flat. And now I'm in A minor. So diminished is this unbelievably underrated universal thing that almost any level can do and absolutely should be doing, whether you're doing metal, classical, hard rock, whatever you're doing, even especially jazz. Oh my goodness. So I hope that this helped. Drop your questions below. I'll see you guys in the next video.